Windsor's walls are stronger than most fortresses, yet even they couldn't muffle the quiet sorrow of a child, especially when that child is the future king of England. For weeks, the palace has been tense. Staff moved silently. Conversations stopped the moment Catherine entered the room. What happened behind those locked doors wasn't just any scandal. Camilla, the queen consort in name but a source of unrest for many, was caught on camera saying something so cruel to Prince George that it brought him to tears. The public only sees Prince George as the cheerful, waving royal child at events. But inside the palace, he's just a young boy trying to understand the heavy responsibility of the crown he will one day inherit. Encouraged by a glass of wine, Camilla chose to say something no child should ever hear during a family gathering. At a formal Windsor luncheon, with carefully arranged seating and flower centerpieces, an uneasy silence filled the air, a tension only the royals truly know. Curious and wide-eyed, George asked an innocent question about his future role. With her signature half-smile, Camilla delivered words that shook him deeply. She told him his place wasn't as secure as he thought, that some crowns are lost before they ever rest on a head. George, trying to make sense of his place in the family, was left confused and heartbroken, running to his mother with tears streaming down his face. And that's when the real storm began. The world knows Catherine, Princess of Wales, as calm and composed. But when it comes to her children, that calm turns fierce. We've seen her shield George and Charlotte at public events, gently pushing them away from flashing cameras. We've witnessed her protect her family from media attacks, determined to spare her kids from the pain Diana's sons endured. But this time, it was different. This was personal. When Kate found out what Camilla said, it shattered the fragile peace between the two women. Behind Windsor's closed doors, Catherine's normally steady voice rose in confrontation with the queen consort. Many royal watchers never expected to see Catherine's fury unleashed, years of pent-up fear and anger coming to the surface in defense of her son. What exactly did Camilla say to spark such outrage? How did William react when he learned his son had been humiliated by the woman his father chose over Diana? And most importantly, what does this conflict mean for the already fragile royal family? What was supposed to be a calm, carefully planned royal gathering, with cameras kept away, elders quietly sipping tea beneath portraits of ancestors, and the younger generation free to play in the gardens, instead became a turning point. That day, Windsor did not smile with Prince George. That day, everything shifted. George was particularly curious that morning, asking William about what it means to be king, his role in the family, why people bow, and why cameras follow him everywhere. William answered gently, just as Diana had once done for him, reminding his son that being royal means duty, kindness, and courage. Young George, still innocent enough to dream without worry, had come to the gathering eager to share his excitement with anyone who would listen. Unfortunately, the person he chose to approach was Camilla. According to palace insiders, George found her near the grand fireplace, where she was chatting with a small group of advisors and family members. In his simple, childlike way, he asked her if he would really become king one day, and if he would be as good at it as his father and grandmother. This was a moment that should have been met with warmth, reassurance, and encouragement every child deserves. But Camilla, perhaps burdened by her own reputation or letting jealousy get the better of her, allegedly leaned down, looked George directly in the eye, and told him that crowns aren't guaranteed, not even for little boys who believe they're meant to wear them. Her words cut sharper than any sword, striking deep into the heart of a child just beginning to understand the weight of his destiny. Some witnesses say she chuckled afterward, brushing it off like a joke, but others describe her expression as cold and defiant, as if daring George to challenge her. George didn't grasp the decades of family politics, power struggles, and bitterness poisoning his lineage. All he understood was that someone he had been taught to respect had just shattered everything he thought he knew about his future, casting doubt on his place in the family instead of honoring it. He didn't break down right away. Like his father and grandmother before him, George knew how to stay composed even as a child. But once he found his mother, everything fell apart. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he tried to explain what had happened. His small voice trembled as he repeated Camilla's harsh words, unsure if they were true, wondering if he was really meant to be king or just a pawn in someone else's game. In that moment, Catherine felt her world shift. This wasn't some careless comment to be overlooked. It was an attack on her son, his future, and the legacy of Diana that she and William had fought to protect. And it came from the very woman who had already taken so much from their family, darkened Diana's final years, and now seemed determined to cast a shadow over George's future too. What began as a hopeful day ended with a storm brewing in the hearts of Catherine and William. Smiles faded, polite conversations grew quiet, and staff noticed the change in Catherine's demeanor, how she held George close, and how her eyes burned with a fierce, rare anger. Because on that day, everything at Windsor shifted forever. Catherine decided she would no longer stay quiet. Camilla's cruel recklessness had ignited a fire that would expose the cracks in the royal family for everyone to see. After years in the royal spotlight, Catherine had mastered the art of keeping her emotions in check. The practiced smile, the gentle nod, the graceful step back when tensions flared behind palace walls. She had endured endless rumors about her wardrobe, her background, and her future role as queen, all handled with the calm dignity Diana would have admired. But when it came to her children, Catherine was a different woman entirely. When George came to her, tear-streaked and repeating Camilla's hurtful words, something inside her snapped. It was a long, smoldering anger she'd hidden every time Camilla acted arrogantly or behaved as if her presence outweighed the family's legacy. Every insult, every whispered criticism from Camilla about how Catherine raised her children or fulfilled her royal duties echoed sharply in George's pain. Holding George tightly, Catherine whispered reassurances, telling him he was deeply loved and that his place in the family was not just secure, but essential. As she held him, her mind raced. This wasn't an isolated incident. She could no longer remain silent. Those close to her said she spent the day pacing in her private chambers, her phone disconnected, consumed by a fierce and burning anger. Memories of Diana flooded her thoughts. How she had fought tirelessly to protect William and Harry from the crushing weight of palace life. How she had stood up to the institution itself to defend her sons. Catherine promised herself she would shield George, Charlotte, and Louis from suffering the same fate. Camilla had crossed a line. Many forget that behind her warm public image, Catherine is a woman of remarkable strength. For years, she had endured quiet battles with Camilla, who, according to palace whispers, often dismissed Catherine as Keen Kate behind closed doors, criticized her charitable efforts, and quietly questioned her readiness for the throne. Catherine had tolerated it all for the sake of family unity, for William, and for the image of a strong monarchy. But not anymore. Not after Camilla made George cry. This was her breaking point. Those who saw Catherine in the hours after the incident noticed she was changed. Her calm shattered, replaced by a steely, determined resolve. She spoke to William with quiet but fierce passion, telling him exactly what had happened, her voice firm and her message clear. William was upset, but Catherine's anger burned hotter. She was ready to take action. No more polite smiles or turning the other cheek. With Camilla undermining her and her children, Catherine knew she had to confront Camilla, defend her son's dignity, and stand up for the future King of England, just as Diana would have demanded. It was no longer about titles, power, or public appearances. This was a mother fiercely protecting her child from mistreatment within their own family. Catherine had reached her limit, and for the first time, The queen consort would see just how serious that could be. Catherine chose her moment carefully. Royal family confrontations rarely happen loudly or in public, but their quiet intensity is far more powerful. Late at night, the halls of Windsor were dim and nearly empty, the soft sounds of staff closing curtains and turning off lights, the only noise. Camilla slipped away from a small after-party, clutching her wine glass with that usual smug look of triumph she always wore after these family gatherings. Confident she'd once again dominated the room, she wasn't alone for long. Catherine appeared in the corridor, standing tall, her eyes locked onto Camilla with such fierce determination that even the queen consort's confident steps faltered. Camilla was used to brushing off Catherine's polite and gentle nature with condescending smiles and sly remarks. But this was a mother ready to fight for her child, no matter who stood in her way. Nearby staff stopped in their tracks, sensing the tension thickening between the two women, though neither raised their voice. These battles are fought quietly, each word deliberate and heavier than the last. Catherine wasted no time on small talk. She told Camilla exactly what George had said, repeating her son's trembling words with the pain still fresh in her voice. Camilla tried to dismiss it at first, swirling her wine and claiming it was all a misunderstanding, insisting George had misheard. But Catherine's gaze never wavered. For the first time, Camilla's composed facade cracked. She repeated the words steadily, then faltered and quickly shifted tactics, downplaying her cruelty as a harmless joke. Catherine refused to let her rewrite the story. Leaning in close, she dropped her voice so only Camilla could hear, making it clear that if she ever spoke to George or any of her children that way again, there would be consequences. William would be informed, as would the palace and the public. Catherine was done covering up Camilla's behavior in the name of family unity, or ignoring how Camilla's presence tarnished Diana's legacy and cast a shadow over future generations. Camilla tried to regain control of the conversation, but Catherine raised a hand to silence her. At that moment, the queen consort realized she was no longer the most powerful woman in the room. She was facing the future queen, a mother with a clear mission, and no carefully crafted public image could protect her from the storm Catherine was ready to unleash. Witnesses said the tension was so thick, even the staff kept their distance, unsure of what they were witnessing. Just then, Charles arrived, catching the terrified look on Camilla's face, and asked what was happening, but neither woman answered. Camilla turned and walked away, her confidence shattered, while Catherine stood tall and met Charles's gaze with a silent message louder than words. That night, the balance of power shifted forever. It wasn't a loud argument or a public scandal, but the impact of that clash echoed through every hallway of Windsor. For the first time, Camilla realized Catherine was more than just the dutiful wife of the heir to the throne. She was a mother, and she wasn't going to stay silent anymore. William had always tried to keep the peace within the family, a lesson hard learned from watching his mother fight to protect him and Harry while navigating the cold machinery of the palace. But when Catherine shared with William what Camilla had said to George, something inside him shifted. Like Catherine, his calm, diplomatic exterior cracked, revealing a quiet but burning anger that even Charles couldn't ignore. That evening, after the confrontation between Kate and Camilla, William found Kate alone, still tense and unsettled. She didn't have to explain again. He saw it all in her eyes. The mix of pain and fierce protectiveness only a parent knows. William held her close, assuring her she wasn't facing this alone. As he stepped back, he promised her it would be dealt with. He knew that confronting his father and Camilla directly could unleash a storm, but for once, he was ready to face it head-on. The next morning, William requested a private meeting with Charles, immediately raising concern among palace staff. Father-son talks were usually carefully scheduled, but William's urgency left no room for delay. In the privacy of Windsor's study, William spoke plainly. He told Charles exactly what Camilla had said to George and how it had shaken a boy already struggling to understand the weight of his future role. William's voice was steady, but firm, every word deliberate. Charles initially defended Camilla, saying she was stressed and that George had misunderstood. William shut that down. He reminded Charles of their history with the press, how Diana fought to protect him and Harry, and how dangerous careless remarks could be, especially coming from someone in Camilla's position. William made it clear his first duty was to his wife and children, and if Camilla crossed the line again, he wouldn't hesitate to defend his family, no matter the damage it might do to the carefully crafted image of the monarchy. It was the first time William drew such a clear boundary, and Charles was visibly shaken. The future king was no longer the obedient son who blindly followed his father's commands. William was fully stepping into the role of protector, not just for Catherine and George, but for Diana's legacy as well. Back at home, William told Kate he had spoken with his father and made their stance clear. It was a quiet moment of unity between them, a reminder that they were a team ready to face any challenge, even if it came from within the family. Kate felt both relief and determination. She'd seen William angry before, but this was different. This was William embracing his role as a parent and future king, sending a message through the palace that could not be ignored. The next generation would no longer tolerate Camilla's harshness. Camilla had received a wake-up call. The days of her controlling the story, mocking Catherine, and dismissing the younger royals were over. William's calm yet firm intervention marked a new chapter in the palace. George's tears had set off a chain reaction that couldn't be undone, because when William speaks, the palace listens. And this time, Camilla found herself shut out of a family she once thought she controlled. The royal family's public image may be built on staged photos and polite smiles, but the fallout from Camilla's words to Prince George was impossible to contain behind Windsor's walls. What started as a quiet disagreement between Catherine and Camilla quickly grew into a subtle but powerful shift within the palace. For the first time in years, Camilla's iron grip on her carefully crafted image began to falter. Staff members who had long avoided Camilla's unpredictable mood swings started exchanging knowing glances in the corridors, sensing the change in the air. The queen consort, who once presided over gatherings with an air of unquestioned superiority, now found herself under scrutiny. Her words became measured and cautious, her jokes met with forced or no laughter at all. The respect she had commanded over the years began to crumble as palace staff quietly sided with William and Catherine in their fierce protection of their children. Before long, whispers of the incident leaked beyond the castle walls. A discreet tip to a trusted royal reporter hinted that Prince George had been brought to tears during a family meeting by an unnamed senior royal. The public, already deeply protective of the young prince, quickly pieced the story together. Social media erupted with speculation, many drawing parallels to Diana's struggles and praising Catherine for standing up for her son. Hashtags celebrating Catherine as a lion-hearted mother began trending, while Camilla's reputation took a hit. Old stories about her behavior toward Diana resurfaced, prompting many to question her place in the family. The queen consort's carefully maintained image of warmth and softness couldn't withstand the storm. Every smile she offered the cameras was met with waves of online criticism accusing her of hypocrisy. Her public appearances grew noticeably colder, the atmosphere around her thick with unspoken judgment. The public embraced Catherine as the embodiment of grace and maternal strength, while Camilla became a symbol of the royal family's unresolved wounds. Meanwhile, Charles, caught in the middle of the rift between his wife and son, found himself in a difficult position. His attempts to control the narrative fell flat, and his efforts to defend Camilla only fueled quiet resentment from William and Catherine's supporters within the court. The long, simmering tension between Charles and William became unmistakable, visible in the strained looks caught by photographers at public events. Camilla faced isolation, not through exile or public disgrace, but a slow, painful distancing. She found herself increasingly alone in places where she once held influence, her jokes met with silence and her authority quietly questioned by the very staff who used to eagerly serve her. Though she tried to maintain her composure and act as if nothing had changed, the damage was done. Catherine, meanwhile, never needed to publicly attack Camilla or launch a media campaign. She quietly carried on with her duties, attending engagements alongside William and their children, her smiles genuine, her presence a quiet testament to true royal dignity. Every photo of Catherine comforting George, every video of her engaging warmly with children on charity visits was a subtle victory. It was a clear message to Camilla and to the world that Catherine's strength came not from titles or forced authority, but from genuine love and an unbreakable bond with her family. Camilla's carefully rebuilt image, restored after years of controversy, suddenly stood on shaky ground, not because of a scandal or headline, but because of one harsh word aimed at a child and the quiet, fierce determination of a mother who refused to let it slide. Inside the palace, the message was unmistakable. Camilla's era of influence was fading, and the future belonged to Catherine and the next generation she was devoted to protecting. Change in Windsor's grand halls usually comes softly, not with a bang. But this time, the shift was clear and irreversible. Camilla's casual, demeaning comment to a young Prince George did more than just shake his confidence. It exposed her fragile standing within the family and set off a subtle yet permanent power shift that even Charles could no longer control. For Catherine, this wasn't about palace politics or public perception. It was about shielding her son, the future king, from the same scars that had marked William and Harry's childhoods. It was about honoring Diana's legacy and making sure George, Charlotte, and Louis grew up knowing their worth, free from the manipulation and cruelty their father had endured. Catherine's firm stance wasn't for the spotlight, it was for her family. In defending them, she emerged as the true heart of the modern monarchy. The episode also reinforced William's role, not just as the future king, but as a father who puts his family's safety above all else. His calm but firm conversation with Charles was more than a warning. It was a declaration that the days of tolerating harm in the name of tradition were over. William was ready to reshape the royal family's future, even if it meant challenging the very system that had shaped his life. For Camilla, this moment marked the unraveling of years of carefully nurtured influence. No official statements were made, no public confrontations aired, but the palace, the public, and the world saw the cracks appear. Her authority within the family weakened, her role questioned, and her legacy tarnished by one cruel act against the young prince who symbolizes the monarchy's future, a future she claimed to serve. Public support shifted firmly toward Catherine, who came to embody strength, dignity, and maternal protection. In her quiet determination, she became what Diana once was, a symbol of the public's hope for a kinder, more compassionate royal family. Because ultimately, the monarchy's true power lies not in crowns or titles, but in the hearts of those who inherit it, and the mothers who fight to keep them safe. Catherine's defense of George not only protected her son, but also reminded the world that the real future of the royal family is shaped by a mother's love. And with that love guiding the way, the future looks brighter than ever. Meanwhile, Camilla's shadow has never been so small.